So I'm looking at what we managed to do for the journey mechanics. I think my headphones are gonna die on me. They keep beeping.
We
Uh,
still have a couple of people that need to do things.
yep. And I'm kind of checking things off. So Win started it. Rowan's done his bit, both sides. Anne's done her bit, both sides. Virens has done the beginning, like the handling the problem thing, and hands off to somebody. Like presents a problem and then picks somebody to go.
So I just want to verify who all is available.
That's what I'm sorting
I,
out.
I
So
think I think it would be
me,
Carabas and
the Overlord,
the Overlord.
and then whoever goes,
After
whoever
that, it'll
the
hand off to
last,
one of those. It'll go to the second of those, and then that person will hand it back to Win,
right, and then we're wherever we get to.
or wherever we were aiming for.
I believe. I don't know that it was so much a physical. It struck me that it was not so much a physical location as a place where the villagers can be safely.
Fair enough.
Whatever that constitutes, whatever constitutes that, so to speak. Does that seem about accurate to everybody? I think that was my understanding of what we'd kind of settled on. Not that we had a specific town or location or whatever in mind, or and now we're on the mid. I don't want to end up with like, uh, and now we're in the, the Midlands, and we have to figure out what we're going to do with these guys. Like that's not where we want to leave it. We want to leave it with we are someplace safe for them, basically. Whatever that looks like.
And that's not necessarily. I mean, to be fair, that's not necessarily the function of the last thing that's handed to Win, for example. Um, on reflection, just from the way I understand the mechanic, probably we want to be someplace that's safe for these people was probably a little bit vague. It probably should have been something a little bit more concrete. And then this
Right.
is the journey for me, because really it's meant to be the so we're in Bree and we want to get what's the journey like to Rivendell? Here's the 5 things that happen.
The only thing I would call it, and this is a bit weird, um, because typically it's like you hand it to somebody and how is this problem solved kind of thing, and they they say, I don't think it would have been a tremendous amount of additional mental lifting on the part of the editors to clarify and take the time to say GM when they mean GM and Overlord when they mean the GM playing the Overlord. You know what I mean? Because the roles are not the same, and to a certain extent your priorities are slightly different and your job is different. And like even just reading this long journey thing, there's a thing here that I might end up just scribbling and going, this should be GM. This should be Overlord.
I would like to propose an alternative, which is maybe there's not a GM role here.
Which is fair.
I think that's what they're driving for. I
Well,
don't know that
I don't know.
Still
I don't know they got there
but...
either, but yeah, because like that first paragraph, the Overlord may frame the event by asking specific questions such as blah blah blah, which is just framing question type stuff. It's a very GME PTBA GM thing, perfectly normal PTBA GM thing.
It's a thing that's often delegated to the GM, but I don't think that means that there is a GM role.
Sure.
I think that the Overlord is intended to be first among equals.
Sure.
And has privileges to ask and answer narrative questions, but I don't think that necessarily means you are, not you personally, but like the person who's filling the Overlord role is like in charge in the same way a traditional GM would.
No, that's absolutely true. I just like calling out like the ones where it's like thinking more meta than inside of my own Overlord skull, such as it is. The only thing I would
you should always be thinking meta.
Okay, but during the montage, the Overlord also gets a turn, but this is weird because it's not. I'm not called upon to solve a problem. I just go and describe an event that's directly related to the Overlord or their minions and tell you guys what's up and how they get in the Fellowship's way. So it isn't like,
I was like,
it isn't like the
maybe
other
you do
handoffs,
have-
right? Say it
maybe
again.
you do have a problem to solve, such as, I don't know, Overlord. Your forces lose track of us for a time. How do you find us again?
Sure, that's fine. I mean, it can be framed up that way. It's just like they specifically like go in here and say what you do during your turn is X. I'm like, well, if that's what I do, then what's the other person's job then? It's just a little bit weird, but I like that too. That works.
Like if you want a way to frame this, I want to suggest that, like any movie where you see the bad guy looking through a crystal ball at the heroes and talking
Oh,
to like his henchman or his witch or whatever, that's what that is.
I have a pretty good idea for like, yeah. I mean, no, my part of the flashback thing is I'm not thinking about it in terms of like what my particular deal is. I'm just looking at it going, okay, but the person handing off to me could you could read it, uh, it that like you don't have to hand me a thing because that's not what I do during my turn, whatever. Um, it doesn't have to be that way. We can just, carry on business as usual. I'm just trying to sort it out. It's interesting to me that it's mentioned like on just page 8 and never goes into it again, but yeah, that's fine. Anyway, so um Virens.
I want to hand this to Carabas and say, as we are heading towards what we think is relative safety, there is dissent among the population that we're escorting, and how is that dissent both manifested and resolved?
Yes,
Is that a fair question?
Ooh,
I like it.
that's a great question. Um, so there's sort of classic, people wandering in the wilderness kind of a thing. No matter how glad they are to be away from wherever they were, they immediately start blaming the people that are leading them for, why things aren't perfect yet. And in fact, that then eventually segues to, things were actually probably better back in the city, which was collapsing, than out here amongst the megafauna and the things that try to draw us into the swamp and steal our souls and things like that. Um, so we're gonna build a giant golden calf. No, a megafauna calf.
You mean
So,
really giant.
so I mean, there's a certain amount of grumbling of, so you guys got us out here, what now? Or, maybe we could have stayed in the city. My cellar has a good stout door. Or, I told you we should have gone with the Sky Fairies. We'd be up in the Midlands by now. These guys know what they're doing. We've never seen them before. They've only been around for a short time. So these sort of grumblings going on, despite Anne's best efforts at, singing sprightly camp songs, and Viren's, teaching people how to play the drums, and Rowan looking enigmatic, and, Wynn trying to show off how he can attract birds, even when the birds are like, have a 12-foot wingspan and things like that.
2 beaks.
So I suppose it's up to Carabas to resolve the problem. And he does that by kind of riffing a little bit maybe off of Anne's idea, but improving on it, of course. Because it's not just enough singing camp songs. You need something inspirational. You need to, call on those stories of, heroic journeys that led to, not just safety, but success and riches and a much, much better future than wherever people were. So Carabas inspires the crowds by trying to sing to them some great songs that he's making up about that very subject. Probably it's something of a deficit because he doesn't sing well. but certainly with the intent of trying to, encourage them. And I guess, somebody made the comment the other day that, yes, when he thinks he's the hero, but everybody realizes he's actually the bard. There's a certain degree of that in what he's trying to do. I'm just trying to see if I've got any, and I don't know if this is something that requires making a roll or not.
I mean, they say in the write-up for the thing, it's like if you decide that the problem is solved by the group going into combat or whatnot, that's still you solving the problem. It's just you chose to have it by throwing the group into combat. So if you choose to solve it by,
hopefully I'm not trying to solve it by having.
Well, I know, but to extend that, if you choose to solve it by there being a roll, then that's how it's solved, or not, I guess, because you want to leave it a little bit up to Gress. If you choose to solve it by saying, I do this and it succeeds and it looks like this, that's fine too. So you can kind of pick, I think. Does that scan to everybody? Like, I feel like you have the power to say it's solved, or you have the power to say, and then I roll because I'm not exactly sure how that turns out for us. And this is less a story of how Carabas solved the problem than how Carabas tried to solve the problem.
Right.
I'm more interested in the purposes of this move for just having things get done and move forward.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, the point is not to drag us into a long conflict. The point is to to resolve the problem. And so the problem is going to be resolved either through Carabas actually managing to inspire people through these tales that he is quickly encouraged to tell rather than sing, or whether the fact that he's doing it provides a distraction, a humorous distraction for them, perhaps to his frustration, or maybe he doesn't realize it, by, oh look, the catling is trying to tell us tales to bolster our courage. Isn't that cute? But I would think one way or the other, it will have its desired effect, because the point is not to drag out the story that way. The point is that's what happens, and one or the other of those results happens. So I will simply try to use my talk nonsense to sway the crowd away from their grumbling about how they're being led into the wilderness to die and things were much better making bricks without straw.
It's less about the causing the inspiration as it is providing the distraction, which it provides, or something like that, I guess. Seems like. So are you rolling, or are you just saying that's?
I'll just go ahead and roll, and if I succeed, then by gosh, he actually manages to do it.
That's fine.
So success means that you're inspiring, and failure means that you're the comic relief.
Yes.
I like it.
And look, I succeeded partially.
Which means it's kind of that mixed bag of some people find you inspiring and some people find you comic relief, and they can spend another day arguing about which it was.
Yes.
Or something,
But it gives them something to talk about. And Carabas feels satisfied, and everybody can draw whatever conclusions they want.
Carabas feels satisfied at being something to talk about.
Hey, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Okay. So do I need to actually come up with something then to hand off to the Overlord?
And it can be as simple as a framing question, like Mike threw out there as one.
I will do this as we have in our passage through the mists. The Overlord has managed to and towards the safety that we're heading towards. The Overlord has managed to lose track of us.
Okay.
How does she react to that? What does she do about that problem?
Okay. I will say I'm just going to frame that very, very slightly different, saying the Overlord's forces have lost track of you. Not because she's not in the scene, but simply because you don't rate for her to worry about your location yet. but you rate for some people. So we're looking at Eki of Bornir, and he is looking at a what do I want this to be? Well, we're going to stick with this theme of the crystal shard. So it's a really, really unevenly cut, very roughly cut, very non-symmetrical shard of crystal, about the size of a good size, like a bag of grain, like a good size, like it would need to be an empty bag of grain to hold something big. It's mounted in something that looks as though it could be, moved away, and it's actually like a chest that's been opened on this near a railing, on wooden flooring. You can see flooring's not really the right word, but whatever. And the chest has been opened, and this sort of metal framing, like stuff to kind of hold this thing, has been like rotated up out of this chest to raise the thing up. And he is sitting on what looks like a little, almost, it's like a camp chair almost. It's all very temporary, meant to be traveling kind of stuff. And he's sitting there with his, his elbows on his knees, and he's, stroking his chin and staring at this thing. And the area that he's in, we see there's a shot of him kind of sitting, and it's further back, and we see the area that he's, past the railing that he's sitting at is fog or possibly clouds going by. So maybe he's on a ship, a flying ship or something like that. And the fog, or difficult to see through mist or whatever, is reflected, or perhaps within the crystal. And he's scowling at this thing and just, glaring at it. And you hear, or we see kind of the lower half of somebody walk up next to him while he's, scowling at this thing. And he kind of doesn't notice them, starts when he does notice them, kind of half glance their direction, realizes kind of who it is, and, reasserts his scowling thing, and just kind of straightens a little bit and pushes the, kind of lifts the gem forward, like rocks it forward, and then lays it back down, like it's kind of a release mechanism to lay it back down into this chest. It must have been custom built for it, because can't find them. Can't lost them somehow in the bloody mists. And he swings the top of the lid shut and stands up and kind of walks over to the railing. Sifley, as he stands up, is brought into the frame the rest of the way, still in the armor, of course, eyes dark. It matters hardly at all. They were in our path. They're not in our way. They are led by Rowan Greenhand, and he is troublesome. He did not... He's a harbinger. The harbingers are manageable. He does not allow himself to be... He does not often follow the council, and never has. Many would say that he picks his direction by determining which way the council will go and picking another. He may be simply contrary, but he's the kind of contrary that we don't need. Could they cause any serious problems? and she kind of comes over to the railing, and you look down, and it's definitely cloud. It's sort of a mix of the mist of clouds. It's the kind you can see bits of the forest down below. There as a and the city, the circular walled city of Red Valley, fairly distant now. So you must be on the back end of and looking back, because it's becoming more distant as they look. They didn't stop anything here, but they're not easy to discount. If they'd had more warning, he's saying, and they will never have enough warning to cause us any sort of discomfort. Now, this voice is not Siflay's. It's coming from behind, and they both grow quite still when it speaks, when the voice comes. Stepping out, onto the flooring, sort of past the chest. It's black dress. We see the feet, and the two of them, almost really in unison, without so much as like a glance one way or the other, make room at the railing, without overtly doing so, without a nod or a bow or any of that kind of but definitely make room. And it's an open question as to whether or not they're making room to out of deference or respect or fear. And it may even not be the same answer for either one of them, depending. She steps up. It's the picture. Really, she's as she's kind of shown in her the picture that I picked up here. So, great gobs of red curly hair and the black dress. Dressed really far too light for the weather. The only, and you can't see it in the picture, but her forearm and wrist are adorned with this sort of I say a wrapping bracelet, but it's really almost a bracer with a large gem set in it that in a comic book would look like it was drawn by Ed Greenwood or Clyde Caldwell. I can't explain it any other way, but find a picture of one of the covers of one of the Ravenloft modules and look at those weirdly rounded, perfectly smooth gemstones that he sets in these large brooches and stuff on the art. And it looks like that. It looks remarkably like the gem crystal set in the necklace that Rowan found, in tone, in color, in size. And we see this as she sets her arm on the railing. They're powerful within their own rights, perhaps, as you tell it to me, but I have not seen any reason to be concerned with the likes of they. They do not understand the scope at which we operate. They could not. We have no reason to worry. So if you have lost them, you have lost them. One loses track of flies buzzing about in a room, but a fly will not ruin your life's plan. It cannot. Doesn't have that capacity. We have much to do. Put this out of your mind for now. If you must revisit it later, do so, dear Eki. But I need that mind. I need it turned towards more important things, more significant things. Come. We have plans to make. We have timing to set. And she turns and, without really at any point, I shouldn't say that. Her eyes are resting on the city the whole time, but without really seeing it, she's looking past it. She's seeing what's next. And she turns, this is now behind her. The city is, you can watch it dying even now while you're watching it, and you see another arm fall away from one of the statues. But it's done. It was done when it happened, as far as she's concerned, and it's gone now, and it's time to move. And Sifley immediately follows, really right at the left hand, and trailing a few steps. Eki his eyes are also on the city below, in the distance and below, and he doesn't really see it either, but he's frowning and he's scowling still, the same look that he gave to the crystal, as though he was trying to look through the mists and see where Green Hand went. And when he steps away from the railing, it's with this huff of annoyance and disgust as he strides after twirling cloak, because he's going to do everything kind of extra, and that's what we see. Good? Did I paint a weird picture? All right. So I need to frame up a thing for Win, but I need some, I believe we need to do a little collective GMing. Okay. So we need to get the people where they need to be safe. But I don't want it to just do that one thing. I want to, so there's, as near as I can tell, there's 3 things that we need from wherever we land. Okay. We need a place for the villagers, for the townsfolk to be, where they are continue to be source of usefulness to us and that sort of thing. We can reach back to them if we need to. We'd like them to be also like source of, look, a clue. We know where we need to go next, or at least a place where you can get a little bit of downtime and put a few things together and figure out what's probably coming next. So we need either, clues or time, possibly both. And in deference to some planning that Bill has for Virens, it's helpful if they're connected in some way to the heir, which is a leader of a people, really that we don't have them in play because they're not a PC. So we need to kind of establish that. And
so I've left a link to my suggestion in Roll20 chat.
Please, thanks, fantastic. So I'm going to look down here.
I like it.
So the island that fell was inhabited. That's because it was a sacred site to people nearby, the Air community perhaps, where their champions are... Right, I remember this. Where their champions or princes ascend to face some mystic challenge or test of personhood to be recognized as worthy. They want us to avenge the loss of the site, might take refugees, but need us to do something specific for them, which is great. I like that. And I don't think... I mean, that informs some of it. I'm trying to, and maybe I'm worrying about it too much, but, well, no, I'm not, because I need to know who these guys are. And I'm not, I just want more input. So let me tell you where my head's at, because this informs kind of what I take to wins. So that's why I'm kind of pausing here for a second. So the heir, when you look at this is on whatever, page 88, when you look at what is the heir, there's a few things here that are useful to me, and a couple, well, useful, and they fit, and some of them that are weird. And I don't actually want to rule out any of them, except I don't think stalwart defenders necessarily makes sense. So because of what we've established about Tenebros, most people don't believe she's really a thing. So being stalwart defenders doesn't necessarily make sense to me. That they're the heir of these people that are basically the Minas Tirith, Osgiliath crowd. So the heir is the leader of the great builders, where they are famous for their advanced technology, and you bring that power with you. So it's some sort of enclave that still remembers much more of the old ways. Maybe that's fine, whatever. The lost land of kings, your kingdom has fallen, and your family and fortunes are lost, but you still remain. I was looking at this a little bit, where it would either be an offshoot or a descendancy of the O'Hare that, when being, living in the ruins for the last mumble years, simply never heard of, and may have issue with them really being, or whatever, but quite surprised that there's still some living remnants of his people. So you might end up with them being, the the Northern Rangers of the O'Hare people kind of thing. Given their proximity to Red Valley, it kind of begs the question of why they didn't just re-inhabit Red Valley, but whatever. Or they're I feel as though some of what I've gotten from Margie is that she's not super jazzed about the idea of them being a kingdom of humans that are actually humans, unless they're like Wakanda, like completely isolated themselves away from typical society, and they're just living very differently than the culture of most humanity. That's a very different people, which kind of makes them less the Lost Lands of Kings and more the Forgotten Lands, where there's some sort of the Forgotten Lands. One interesting, the kingdom was believed not to exist until recently. So sort of a Shangri-La, a Wakanda, whatever.
Although you could make that work with the O'Hare as well.
Mm-hmm. Certainly, could absolutely be. I mean, it's really almost the Forgotten Lands and the Lost Land of Kings could be either or both, and expressed in different ways. So we don't have to closely adhere to any of that. But I like the idea of it being the heirs people, and I just want a sense of what we're walking into here. So what, or it's a completely different race. It could be like we do, like, I don't know, centaurs. It could be anything. There could be a whole people of a particular, maybe the elves have a kingdom out here. Like I say, elves collectively, the whole fairy creatures have like a thing out here.
A race of bird people. Perhaps.
And maybe that ties in really well to the flying. What was the deal? The birds, they don't like you? I thought they liked you. They don't like you.
They like me to a uncomfortable extent.
So sort of like a suet thing hanging in the backyard.
I was gonna say, did your scarecrow body get filled up with birdseed at some point and nobody told you, or? So I like the bird people thing is interesting to me, because then it's like Bill's thing about the island becomes less about like it's that island, but it's a thing that they do when an island goes up into the air. It's like that is now our new destined place where the prince has to go to prove their worth, blah blah blah.
So
that kind of thing.
So just to put an idea out there,
Mhm.
because I think this is silly.
I'm asking, so you guys, please.
Yeah, so what if the bird people, if that's what we go with, the bird people don't fly, but perhaps the princes or the people who become the royalty go up to this island and somehow get blessed, and they do fly, and that's what marks them as the royalty of the area. And so a great tragedy has befallen them now that they don't have some island to get blessed at.
I'm 90% of the way there. What I was thinking of, or well, what if? Let's play a game of what if. What if the crown prince gets sent up to do the thing, right? Get the blessing, and the island falls before the blessing is bestowed. So the eldest son goes down with the rock, obviously killed, because nothing's surviving that. So the heir now is the younger sibling, who is years too early for that, and by many considered to be like kind of, the other one was the golden child.
So
it's not that they can't get the blessing; they got to find a new island, A, but B, the one that everyone's expecting to be the heir is, you know, in a pile of rubble the size of a small mountain.
Well, I was just gonna say, are you saying that this could have been a PC, but we didn't choose them, so they died? And
Sure. Oh God, don't make me laugh. God, that hurts. Oh. Okay. Whew. Yikes. Yeah. So
or they were the PC that decided they're going to drop from the game, and so the GM chooses them to be the.
but we still need the people, so
Boromir?
they're younger. Yeah, their younger brother, sister,
So
whatever.
I dropped a modified suggestion into Roll20 chat, which I don't know how people will respond to, but take a look
The
anyway.
bird people are too heavy to naturally fly, but can glide. But they can also naturally use. Oh, I like that. The ley lines. Royal family lays eggs on the island, which accumulates magical potential in the shell of the egg. When it hatches, the child's infused with power and can fly anywhere. I like. Ooh.
that is many good things.
I love all of that. That's good stuff. So
Congrats, Bill.
we can collectively say, that the falling of the island was a tragedy for a number of different reasons. The oldest of the heirs gone. The next generation of eggs gone. The royal family terribly shaken. At all levels, because now you've got somebody probably around the right age to be a protagonist in a Tanith Lee story, is now the one who's the next heir. You know,
And that adds an entire new layer to the Overlord choosing that particular Sky Island to bring down. This is not just we'll test the great weapon. This is, hey, let's test the great weapon and set up something else that we want to have happen.
That was the root of my original suggestion. It wasn't just any island; it was something sacred and important.
How do we take a huge chunk out of these guys? I love that all so much, and this is why I asked, because this is all so much better than the best possible thing I had come up with up to this point, and I knew it was just I wasn't feeling it. Okay. When breakdown for me, well, you know, I can. Is it on your character sheet, the whole bird thing, or can you break it down for me real quick? Your whole like bird problem.
What? Oh,
The whole birds
1 second.
touching this damages.
It was not written out well, but
difficulties of the undead. Okay. No. This is fine. So I'm going to say something about the air. This is there, you know, deep, heartfelt bow in the direction of Miyazaki, because it's always something about flying, right, with him. Creatures of the air. Perhaps it's because their interaction with the crystals and the crystals fly. This is all kind of hand wavy, explained about as much as Neil Gaiman ever does kind of stuff. But for whatever reason, creatures that are naturally of the air, whether it be through magic or are disruptive to your self. Birds, this kind of thing. You were going to say something, Mike, because all this is me thinking out loud. So were you going to say something?
No. Nothing relevant. Mostly, I was just going to enjoy the fact that I got in there. People of the air. Who are the people of the air?
Yep. Oh! Well done. Well done.
Nobody realized it.
It's
doing good.
I am, yes, the people of the air. Who are the people of the air? Very, very nice. Okay. These people are and they're also very secretive. I think probably people know of them. You wouldn't not know of them, but they're naturally nomadic because they're following their islands, right? And these things, they float. They follow the ley lines. They drift. That's the word I'm looking for. They drift along certain that path. Semi-nomadic then, because well,
It's their migratory path.
they're not. Yeah, they're there. You go. They're not fully nomadic because they're following a set thing. They're not just wandering wherever. But I mean, no nomadic people's ever just wandered wherever. They followed what they needed to follow. All right. So even in the times of the O'Hare dominance, these people were always problematic for your people. Does that track? There's a little bit of calling, commanding lore here, I think, for you. But so okay. Days have gone by. I don't think we're meant to fiddle around. I need to read the food rules again. Days have gone by, and in any case, the supplies that you guys managed to grab in a rush out of the city is kind of running thin. So you know, kind of, you need to get where you need to get. What I'm looking at is some kind of thing like, for when, how do you know that you're approaching a like flock, I guess, whatever the collective would be for these guys, but a collection of these folks. Avians? What do we want to call these guys? We need a good name.
The people of the air.
The people of the air.
I just like flowing names for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hunting one of those megafauna would solve our rations problem. I have in my head this prehistory. Before the I'm saying this based off of the thing that Dave put up there about the megafauna. I have this thing of the prehistory before the Tuscan Empire, before settling down into the sickle and the spear, you know, the prehistoric orc tribes as like an entire tribe hunting and bringing down megafauna, like the sort of the mammoth hunter kind of, prehistoric thing. Dipping in and out of the lowlands to hunt for, a kill that would feed a tribe for 2 years, kind of a thing. Anyway, I'm just throwing that random thought out there. Anyway, anyway, so the question I kind of have here is what signs do you start to see that you're near the people, that you're near an encampment of the people of the air, and what must you like personally overcome in order to, because you're one of the few people who would know their sign well enough from personal experience to really recognize what you're seeing from the sign, and how do you overcome that general aversion to interacting with these people that you've gotten from your history? Does that work as a framing kind of question for your last thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hit me then.
Well, one of these signs isn't necessarily from them, but rather a change in the O'Hare ruins around. They shift from being some kind of, towns or the occasional statue from where the border shifted to more military encampments.
Oh, okay.
And so that's a sign that there's a conflict, and since the floating islands don't necessarily obey the big keep out signs, and thus neither do the people of the sky. Is that it?
Okay. Yeah. People of the air.
People of the air. And kind of in their place, since the O'Hare are no longer around to keep them out. There's the a shifting kind of the trees. They seem a bit more woven together. In a
Okay.
way.
Yeah. No. So you're spotting like
Signs of their habitation overtaking what used to be O'Hare.
Okay. So you're seeing like, there's areas where it really feels like that you should be seeing light coming through and you're not, and if you look at it, you can see where it's very subtle, but the branches have been woven together to provide support or to provide a blind, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So there were never hardly all-out war. I mean, it was the O'Hare Empire for a reason, obviously, but they were never really on friendly terms with the O'Hare. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a long history of fighting them. Ooh.
Go. Whatever just made you say that, go.
So, the ancestors of the people of the air had, built special weapons specifically to attack the O'Hare. And they passed that knowledge on to all the other kind of flying creatures or avian creatures, which is thus why birds.
I'd go even further and say like some of that even filtered out into other peoples who would prefer not to have lived under the O'Hare yoke, and they were never servants of the O'Hare, never part of that, but they were too much trouble. But it started to spread.
Oh, I was just trying to give a reason as to why birds damage me.
They were just and we can certainly stick with that. I'm just liking the idea of them like, oh, we thought you just liked being slaves. I mean, if you don't want to, if you truly don't want to serve these, let me tell you how to. We'll tell you how to push them back. Whatever. Just thinking about that kind of stuff. That's not what I want. $56. No. Sorry, I'm just looking something up. How do you overcome? I guess the next thought is like what drives you to just kind of set this aside in the interest of getting your people? Like, is it a connection with some person in the group that I need
It's knowing that the people we have with us need a place to at least rest for now, and this is likely the quickest or the closest spot. Also, a lot of muttering to myself, oh, it's been however years. It's possible that they've forgotten some of that, and I never hurt any of them.
Personally. Not all O'Here. No, wait. Okay. I like that. No, that's great. That's great. Do you walk into their temporary settlement? Do you get far enough to walk into their temporary settlement, or do like outlying scouts and such like stop you and find, spot you and bring you in, kind of a thing?
They definitely stop us before.
Okay. That's what I figured. I mean, you're bringing the villagers with you. It's kind of, or the townsfolk. It's kind of hard to. One does not simply walk in the mortar when one is bringing several bakers with you. So there's a bit. There's certainly. So the scouts are initially. Oh yeah, I'm going straight Faramir with this. The scouts are initially very, very negative towards just your presence, and we'll say you guys are kind of like on that, that misty border between the lowlands and the midlands, as you're coming up out of this. And they're very much sort of elves on the edge of Lothlorien thing.
Yeah.
Having spotted a dwarf in the party, James, you're the dwarf. In this instance, and you would guess commander of these. Are we talking, how are people seeing these things in their mind's eye? Are we talking like bird faced, full on beak thing, feathers and the like, or is it more subtle than that? Is it less subtle than that? Are we full on, are we full on birds and less, is it gradated by nobility, I guess? I don't know, something like that.
I picture it at least like a full bird head. Similar to
so kind of a Horus type character.
Egyptian, yeah. Or even more so. But yeah, I continue. I picture it. Not extreme, but yeah, extreme. I mean, not subtle. How's that?
Yeah, proper animal heads. I mean, we've got a talking cat. It's not like it's that far outside the pale. I gotta wonder if they interact with the catlings very well. I mean, that's more of an annoyance than anything else, though.
They know enough to keep far away from our lands. Or I'm sorry, did we decide that they're figures out of legend, or?
I think that they're known, but they generally avoid interactions with other folks. So how does that strike other?
They keep above all the other people, so.
I like the picture Bill just sent.
Let me look. Yeah.
Sure.
There's if you do a just a Google image search for Aarakocra, Hang on, I'll toss it into at least the spelling. There's quite a few sort of in that vein. Some of them are kind of like, I see this and I immediately think, what do you mean Flash Gordon approaching?
I actually like the reference to Horus because of the association with royalty and nobility and divinity. These being the heirs, of course.
So still some definitely human. Yeah. Wings on the back rather than wings as arms.
Yeah.
But less
people.
Less angelic and more like human griffins. Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that I think was floated earlier that I may have just imagined from Avatar: The Last Airbender, where it's like this is a bird platypus or this is a bear duck, but you never have just the bear. Yeah. And maybe the humans are just the humans. Like everything is humanoid, but the humans are like, yeah, we're just us, and everybody else is like, but you're supposed to be human and.
So are you an elf human or are you a dwarf human?
Are you a bird?
Or bird human?
No, just a bear.
Just a bear. Like that's so weird. Humans are weird.
Bosco.
Humans are so weird. All right.
That was me and the rock ferret, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I like these guys. I like them. I'm pleased. Okay.
Do I just for purposes of fun, do we want to give them an Egyptian motif just to?
I was in fact, and this isn't Egyptian, and I acknowledge that, but I was in fact going with the first couple names I grabbed were Berber, which kind of puts us in the right like zip code anyway of the North African deserts and so forth, and thinking nomadic and as far as name patterns go, I was gonna kind of go that route. We have some nice stuff there, just in terms of having a thematic through line for their names and so forth. Does that work? I mean,
I like that.
I can go, yeah. So anyway, I don't know that we want. I don't know that we want the. I don't want to go all the. I would rather have them be more nomadic tribal than Egyptian. But that whole. We'll see where we get.
Sure.
Well, that
I lost you.
So the animal human gods are
I lost you again, Margie.
Animal human gods are called.
The animal.
I got that part.
So, gods that are a cross between animal and human in appearance, representation.
Sure.
Is really not limited to Egyptian. You find it in a lot of different cultures. So I have no problem with your Berber-esque, nomads having, animal human gods. That's not surprising.
Amazigh culture, which is the Berber word for Berber, meaning the people, as it typically does, is based on strongly nomadic, shamanistic ancestry. Their arts are mostly the portable and useful kind, weaving of rugs and blankets. And I like that because it ties back to the whole like having woven the branches together and stuff to conceal and support in the trees. The symbology put into their works has mystical significance within the culture. The meaning of the work is equally as important as the skill behind it, that sort of thing. It's an interesting kind of little touch. I like that a bit. Anyway, so we got the scouts pulling the angry elves on the edge of the elflands kind of thing with these with you guys, and being talked down, or rather sort of called off, I guess, by somewhat incongruous character in that they're clearly meant to be the commander of the group, but they're quite young by comparison to the rest. Um, probably 5 years younger than the youngest other member, just to judge by physical size, um, stature, that sort of thing. And they're speaking largely in their own language, but this one, after getting everybody to lower their spears, bows, what have you, turns to you and actually looks in a very kind of straightforward, unapologetic way at each of you, and in many cases really seems to note you for sees for themselves some kind of meaning in what they see. That you can see this person. You would guess male. Well, what do you want the heir to be, male or female? Speak up.
Female.
Female. All right.
Because I had been thinking about them as male, and I defy that. So.
All right. Let's say. Yeah, that'll go. I'll go right that way. All right. So yeah, and you realize that you would kind of misjudge the age a little bit because the maybe I may be misrepresenting, but I'm going to have to anthropomorphize. I guess I'm going to fail and anthropomorphize them somewhat. Some of their slightness, build, so on and so forth, you realize is the fact that they are female, and they step forward, but you see them note who you are individually. They take very little notice of Anne because Squire. Somewhat a bit of surprise, caution, not like fully on guard, but quiet wariness with regards to Carabas.
As well they should.
Right. When she seems to regard with almost wonder, not like, the great, the great builder gods are among us, but like, how are you still here kind of, but, taking in the trappings, taking in the clothing, the marking, the various things that would mark them, from O'Hare culture, and clearly the non-corporeal living nature of what you are. The eyes widen a bit. Some of the body movements are certainly very bird-like, so there's a lot of little head twitches and stuff. Virens, they regard, and they come up very close, like very close to you, and are, peering up at you, and you see them, whatever little, Virens, give me this, some sort of badge of your second within the tribe status that you would have on you, or like have visible. whatever that might be. Did you have something like that?
Maybe. Like, if anything, it's going to be like notches on his spear or something like that. Just number of times that he's visited the capital
Something
or been
inside,
asked to speak up.
something that would be from an orcish culture point of view, being pretty inside baseball. Like you would expect other orcs to see it and recognize it, but not really. Even the people that you're traveling with would know.
That's why I was thinking notches on the spear. Like, if anybody who had no idea what the U.S. military structure looked like saw like the bars and other insignia of command on someone's uniform, it'd just be like, I don't know what that means. But if you're in the military, you recognize it immediately, and you're expected to like plug yourself into that.
Yeah, and take that even further, and like being able to actually identify the service, the service location ribbons. You know, all the little bands that show I was stationed here and stationed here and stationed here and that can go on for quite a while if you've been in the service for a long time, and being able to go, oh, Guam. Huh, when did you serve in Guam? You know, that kind of a thing that most people are like, where are you seeing Guam anywhere in any of what he's got on his shirt? On his jacket or other, that kind of thing. I'm assuming maybe not entirely polite to reach out and touch it, but you see their eyes definitely track to the notches on the spear, and you know that kind of eye twitch that would be like reading it really. And gives a bit of a head nod and a bow kind of a thing. So definitely some deference there, some recognition. And it raises questions that they're not taking the time to answer. Rowan, it's the only one that she touches. What did you do with the necklace? Who's got Viren's has that right now, right? Didn't you give it to him?
Viren, yeah, he's got it.
Okay. So she comes over and looks at you and kind of your traveling gear, where is the axe, like on the back at the waist? Where's that axe?
At the waist.
At the waist. Definitely notes that thing.
If his hands go anywhere near it, he's gonna be like, no.
No. But and it's really kind of quick. But she reaches up and like tugs down on the collar of your shirt, like tugs it down a bit, tugs up at the ends of your sleeves at the cuffs, like they're checking, like they're looking for something in your shirt and at your wrist, and it's almost like a frisking without it being a frisking.
So.
And you see the weapons.
It's gonna be rude to raise an ankle and just be like, "You want to try there next?"
She kind of some sort of like weird kind of throat chirp thing. While she was doing that, the weapons, as she was even approaching him, the weapons had all around her had all kind of come up again, and with a little like head twitch kind of thing, they all kind of lower again. And they're all keeping an eye on the villagers, but it's definitely you guys that they focus on primarily. You're from Red Valley. Yes? And her voice is really disconcerting in that it doesn't have any particularly special quality to it. It's not got much of a. There's nothing particularly bird-like about it. It's quite human, quite normal sounding. You've come from Red Valley?
Yeah.
Why were you there? And she's saying that directly to Rowan. Why were you there? And she gestures even to make sure that it's clear that she's talking like sort of a circular kind of thing to encompass the you lot. What were you doing there?
So I had this horoscope I wrote up about the shifting ley lines. And it was
Okay.
supposed to point me towards a town. And I thought there was a different town, but then apparently the ley lines have shifted a little bit because of an island. So
And her
yeah.
eyes kind of widen a bit at the mention of an island. You knew what was going to happen in Red Valley?
I mean, I presumed.
You presumed that that was going to happen, or that something was going to happen?
One of those things.
Harbingers. Like, it's not a compliment. Just the type of answer that you're giving.
No. Eki said it right. Rowan will be contrary, just to be contrary.
Naturally contrary, just a bit. We should speak more. Did you know anything of the island?
I feel like that takes like a quick glance from Rowan to Virens to see what he wants to say about
And she
that.
notes that, because that or at least possibly confirms some things that she has going on in the back of her mind. Did you have something to do with that? And the weapons don't rise, but you can literally hear hands tightening on them. Or you think you can. Did you have something to do with that? Anybody, I mean, Virens certainly can speak up, you know. But certainly
we fought against those we believe were responsible for it.
Her head kind of draws up and back a little bit. You know who that might be? You know them? You know their faces?
Yes.
We should speak more. You will come with us. Bring these. Are these under your protection? This flock?
Yes.
She gestures backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bit of an argument with like probably the oldest of the scouts with this young one. And she kind of who do you think's best at languages? Who would be most like able to catch stuff out of what they're saying?
And
Who is
Anne.
Anne?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
And-
it's either going to be Anne or it's going to be our lovely Harbinger.
Yeah, Rowan's.
But he probably knows more about dead languages than live ones.
What do you think, Mike?
I'm a dead language.
You are a dead language. Rowan can speak to animals and rocks, so makes sense they could speak to a lot of things.
Yeah, there's certain. I'm gonna say that you catch meaning. You catch the gist of a thing with this particular core, not necessarily individual words, and I'm not saying that Anne would necessarily either. But you're getting like the gist of a thing with these guys because you're getting the direction of if it were Birdsong, you would know like who was arguing with who was claiming territory, that kind of thing. And it's not that, but it's actually, I'm going to ask to see if there's a wrinkle here. You said animals and rocks and stuff. Does that include creatures of the air or not? Is that a gap for Rowan? For this sort of continuing air creatures are weird kind of thing, or not?
You know what? That is.
The anti-Gandalf.
I was gonna say given where the mythology of all this came from, birds are like the most likely people that he could talk to.
Okay.
But I think from this story and just making birds weird, I think
Okay.
let's make it where you can't talk to birds.
Okay, so mostly what you're getting here then is just biolanguage thing, and Virions would definitely pick up on this too. I mean, anybody's going to get a little bit of this. Virions is going to, I mean, she is definitely the one in charge, incongruously, and the authority is more than just she is the one in charge of this scout troop. Okay, that goes without. That's Viren's take on it. It isn't just like commander; it's commander plus. Enough so that this person, who is probably her second in command, feels very comfortable with pushing back pretty hard on the decision being made. Because this is the scout decision thing, not the other thing, and feels like there can be some push there. Rowan might get that a little bit less. Margie, you catch her name because he says it several times. Sekura, and I'm going to make sure it's not S-A, it's S-E-K-U-R-A. Sekura.
Okay.
Says it twice, and also some sort of honorific. Like, Sakura is a thing. The third time he tries to make his point or drive it home, he says some sort of honorific title. Not a rank. Like, he's not saying lieutenant or captain, but something. Like some my lord, my lady, princess, whatever. Something like that. It's you couldn't put your finger on why that is, or how you know that, but that's definitely what it is. So, name.
Interesting.
Anyway, so she finally just snaps, kind of an enough thing, and then turns back and says, "We will see you in. You must speak with our." You're guessing what she says next is king and queen, rulers, something. Chief, shaman, something. Maybe it's all those things. And they lead you in the rest of the way. So we get into the village. And I'm gonna kind of throw it back if James, if you want to do any more like sort of lore commanding on how this place kind of looks. Because it's still in the trees and definitely the woven branches thing, but if there's anything else of note that you would see like in an actual inhabited camp that they've been in actually for a unusually for them long period of time, what do we see there as we're coming in? If there's anything else that you want to add, like what their sleeping arrangements look like, do they take you guys up into the trees? Is it that kind of a thing, or do they leave you on the ground?
I think we'd be left on the ground at least initially.
Okay.
To kind of alert those in charge before we, enter.
So you're kind of brought into a central space with a sense of many eyes around you, and you can see people too, but there's a sense that there's a much larger population here than what you're immediately seeing to hand. In most cases, I think to kind of attribute, and maybe this is some more information here, but I think, are we sticking with like sort of it's the royal family who can fly and glide and that kind of thing? Is that, or wait, Bill, what were you saying? Everyone can glide, but it's the royals who can properly fly, or is it just the royals that can glide?
they've got some kind of infusion of whatever it is that keeps the islands afloat, like some special mineral that's kind of like baked its
baked in the eggs.
Go above and beyond. Yeah.
Yeah. So they can properly ascend, descend. Everybody else still has wings enough to glide. So we're not talking like vestigial. They're just not a fully developed kind of thing.
The fact is, it's really hard to have wings that are big enough to carry a humanoid-sized body.
Fancy.
Yeah. But speaking from like real life evolution, though, just the ability to glide is still a huge survival advantage.
Oh, God, yes.
If these people built their homes or their temporary shelters on cliff sides and just maybe like ran ropes down the sides, like they could get away from a lot of people.
I like that. So let's since we're talking about coming out of the lowlands to the highlands kind of thing, or lowlands to the midlands, let's put it like it's in trees and up against a cliff. So we end up with these sort of cliff dwellings that are like only occasionally habited. They come and go, but they can still make use of it in a way that most people never really could. So a cliff on one side, or a cliff face above you on one side, and then trees all around, in the sense that these folks come around, and in seeing this in comparison, you sort of spot it with the scouts, but even more so here, you can see that wingspan, the development of it, is just more pronounced in the leader of the scouts. Again, maybe it's a scale thing. She's small. The wings are really pretty remarkable, and she keeps them tucked away. But when she comes in and the wings kind of come out a little bit, you see it's much more pronounced. And like today's point, to a greater or lesser degree, all of these creatures are probably somewhat attuned to this whole ley line thing. The nobles just more so, because again, Heinlein ruined Pegasus for me at an early age when he explained that for a Pegasus to actually fly, it would have to be the size of a dog. The wings would basically entirely cover it, and it would essentially have to live on nothing but pure sugar and whiskey in order to have enough fuel enough to be able to have enough energy intake, to fly for even short periods. And even then, it would only glide.
See, that's why I'm bringing the island and
exactly.
levitation into it.
You need magic.
Let's have the wonder, but let's understand why too.
Yeah, exactly. When Pitch Black first came out, I got into such a not a row, but certainly a long discussion about. And they made a mistake in the movie in that they said, the air is particularly thin, and if they said it was hard to breathe because it was particularly thick, it would have helped. But all the critters that could fly, one of my friends had a big problem with, because they were big and they shouldn't have been able to fly, and then the air was thin, and like that would make it even harder. And like, but we know they can fly. And he's like, how do we know we can fly? I'm like, because we see them fly in the movie. Clearly there's something that they don't get into. Do you really think Riddick is a scientist? Whatever, they can fly. And that approach did not appease him. It's like, I have like objective evidence that they have the physical ability to fly because I saw them fly in the movie. He was poorly satisfied by that, but no, I like our explanation for that. All right, so I want to summarize some of this, or at least kind of get through some of the bits real quick. A lot of hubbub. The leader, very clearly the leader. I'll say the secular leader of the group is a woman whose physical character, physical appearance, and certainly coloration and that sort of thing really makes it fairly obvious that she's related in some way, shape, or form to your scout leader. Comes out. So chief of the tribe, in some way, shape, or form, chief of this group. For those taking notes, We're gonna go with Nima. I'm gonna say it's spelled Nima or pronounced Nima. It's Ghnima. Chiefess. I don't know what you would call her specifically. And the shaman of the tribe, a guy, a male about the same age. Lots of extra symbology, woven materials, that sort of thing, woven into his feathers, along his ridgeline and stuff. Both with the developed wings of nobility. They're standing they're approaching things in the manner of what their roles demand, but Anne at least can see that they have some further deeper relationship. Anne at least immediately pegs them as a couple, like life bonded couple here. Explanations are made relatively quickly. Sakura just going off in rapid fire in their own language, indicating, and actually only does that very, very quickly, and then switches to something that everyone can understand, which you can quickly see as sort of out of respect for the guests, explaining this person, this basically making introductions as much as they had, but Harbinger, they come from Red Valley. Are they Virens, are you referred to as a second spear?
He was not. He would have been, but he was basically too useful out in the field. The second spear is really more like a political appointment. It's
right.
Like the person you send back to the capital to do the talking.
Would she have misread you as a second spear based on?
Like he's got all the qualifications. It's like he's still functioning kind of like a field officer. He should have been promoted a little higher, but he's too useful in the field. It's like Captain Kirk. It's like, don't make me an admiral. I'm too good at. I need to be in command of a starship.
Yeah, and I'm just guessing it. What I'm asking, I guess, is based on what she spotted and recognized on you, would she have assumed that you were a second spear?
Like probably, like anybody who knows Orcish culture well enough would be like, yeah, this guy is not second spear. But anyone who's only basically familiar with it would be like, oh yeah, this guy is probably not the chief of a tribe, but is right up there.
Yeah, trust me, I know the Tuscan culture. That's a second spear, But she introduces you as such. A second spear of one of the orc tribes. I don't know if they would I don't think she would recognize your specific tribe, but because that's probably a bridge too far. But certainly recognizes at least what you should be. Quickly summarizes, and the focus is on Wynn, which hardly seems to even require introduction for anybody in the large audience that you have. Rowan, who again doesn't really, one of the way she presents it is one of the freely wandering harbingers is how she puts it, which seems to not necessarily put them at ease, but certainly seems to be something they had been waiting to be, identified, and seems to bring some understanding to the whole thing. Who seems to have, and then Viren's second spear explains, sort of gestures at doesn't really say a lot about Carabas and Anne. They come from Red Valley. They were there because of signs that the Harbinger had read that something was going to occur, and they knew something. They were following similar things with regards to the island, the falling island, and this spear says they have faced those who caused the island to fall and know their faces. All right. And so the great murmuring fluttering. That's wrong. Buzz is both the wrong and the right word for that. Throughout the crowd, and the chief kind of does this little sideways kind of wave thing with both the arm and the wing. What would you have of us? In simplest terms, travelers, you have come from a falling city, those in your care. What would you have of us? Speak it plainly, and then we will speak more. Anybody can speak up. I'd love it if it were Anne.
Yeah.
You know what?
I was thinking I was the least likely to do it, but yeah, I'll speak
I mean,
for the humans.
I love the idea of what you can see Rowan sort of formulating how to put it, or
Yeah.
Viren's, and you just saying like
Plain speak.
yeah, you just cut right to it.
Yeah, these people are refugees. I ask only that you keep them safe until we can determine a better home, since they cannot. I'm sure you understand what that is like.
When one tribe, sorry, Marge, can you mute for a sec? You're
Can I
getting.
mute?
You're
I'm
repeating
getting it.
It's echoing again.
I'm getting an echo back. I think your mic is picking up what's coming through your ears, and I am very bad at talking through an echo of my own voice. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's just hard. And I want to make sure I get this clear. When one tribe, when one flock, she uses a word that probably means both. When two tribes or two flocks are both harmed by a storm, by a catastrophe, they join together, they help one another, so that those who survive can continue, can thrive. We have been devastated by loss. You have, your and you feel like the next thing in there should be home or something. It's one of their words. Should be home or place. Nest, something like that, was destroyed. Maybe it probably sounds most like nest to you. Thank you. That's excellent. And probably the word that you fill in was destroyed. Much was lost. Your home was destroyed. Your nest was destroyed. I feel like I should be putting it in like pointy brackets if it were a comic book. Your nest was destroyed. We will take you in. But we need now, and she gestures to these people, we will take you in. But then she turns back to you and says, but we need the two, as we help this other flock, we need your flock to help us. We need that. And we would speak further of that in private. Will you?
And I choose to actually misunderstand part of that.
Okay.
And say, be speaking for the people from these are all very hardworking people, and they will an asset to your nest. And we can speak of other.
And they.
I want to make sure they save face, that the people that we're bringing here feel like they're being valued.
Gotcha. And the shaman guy steps forward, kind of making almost like a patting motion in the air. and says places will be found for them, roles will be found for them. They will have a space. Have no doubt of it. We welcome you, and speaks to them directly. Who among you will speak for the rest? And did we come up with a name for the leader of the looters? Did we
Bernard and Jane were the
Bernard and Jane were the innkeepers.
I
was talking about the
bandits.
The bandit, yeah, the looters, the brigands. Did we have a name for him? I don't know if we did. I don't know if I specifically said what it was.
As far as we got, it was Bob the Bandit, but I think we came up with another name. Let me look.
Yeah, I don't specifically remember. I feel like it was like an owl name or something like that.
Ambardo the Bandit. That's what it was.
Ambardo? Okay.
Or that's the companion that Varens has. If that's not the leader, then
that's not. Yeah, no, that wasn't the. No, I'm talking of the guy with the smooth tongue who can like confuse, and the one who was still there, like.
I don't think we have a name for him.
All right. Let's go with Lalo. Pun intended, I guess. Lalow. He starts to step forward, and he's already like licking his lips, to kind of do the big gesture kind of thing, and says, "I would, blah blah, do you have any way to speak for you?" And the innkeeper's wife, like literally grabs him by the back of his neck on the collar and and he like squawks, kind of, pulls it like as says forward, "We all speak for ourselves, but if you need to if you need things organized, my husband and I we know everybody here. We know everybody really well." And she kind of gives, shoots a sidelong at the bandit guy, and he oh yeah, of course, yeah, that kind of thing. So and there's a bit of even kind of a welcoming chuckle at the folks who are watching this kind of thing play out. So that's scene 2. The shaman makes a few gestures, calls on a few folks, and more people are coming down, gliding down off the cliffs, jumping down from the trees, and welcoming people, bringing small little packets of food, skins of water, that sort of thing. Welcoming is happening, and the Sakura, it ends up at your side. We also have refreshments, but my mother and father would have you speak directly with them within their, and she used that same word again, within their nest, although it seems to have a different connotation here, and brings you into a large cave on the cliff that's at the lower, that's in the lower area, like really accessible at ground level, or fairly close to ground level, in the cliff face. No doors, it's just wide open to it, but it, far enough back that, it can be shielded from the elements, that sort of thing. Lights in here are torches, no glowing crystals, anything of that nature. They're just in here. There's certainly guards, attendants, that sort of thing. But the chief rests on sort of somewhere between, a backless chair. You know the ones I'm thinking of? Like it's a very nice, ornate kind of a thing, but it's really more of a stool kind of a thing. It's just that sort of U-shaped seat with no back, and then like the kind of the curved. That's what most of them use as chairs when they use as chairs, and that's what you guys have, the padding, that kind of thing. They have you sit, explain things, and since we kind of already talked a lot of this out, I'll quickly summarize, the gist of it. And again, it's often seeded through with their own terminology for certain things that really don't have an easy expression in other languages. But the gist of it is Sakura's older brother, the heir to, who would have been chief, had been selected to go up to the island where and bring back because he could, he among the nobility, they're the ones who can actually get up to the thing, to bring back the eggs of the next children. Among those eggs, the first of his, what's the word I'm looking for? We'll say but it would have been the first of his, his children, amongst, with so on and so forth, went up.
Clutches.
The clutch. Thank you. First of his clutch, as well as ours. And there's a catch, obviously, in the throat. Thank you, Margie. Clutch. Beautiful word for this. He went up. The island came down. We lost an entire generation of our leaders, of our family. The towns that we've spoken with that have heard of this, that know of this, they say it was random. They say it was that none were, that it was out in the out far enough away that it affected none, that it harmed none, a freak occurrence. We know better. This was an attack. It demands vengeance. Whether we were an afterthought by whomever did this, or the true target of it, we know no one who had the power to do this could not have known its importance to us. Who was this? Who did this? And in this case, directing it to Rowan.
All right. So this is where Rowan pulls out his horoscope he wrote out in the first game.
Okay.
And it is a scroll. And it is one of those scrolls that has like 20 other pieces of paper attached to it. This is the Magister equivalent of a horoscope, or of like a conspiracy board. And
does it kind of look like the contract that Bilbo has in the first Hobbit movie, where there's like the when you say the attached piece of paper, they like fold out to the side to like expand sideways on pieces, or is it more like just Post-it notes on a long piece of paper?
Yes.
Yes, all those things. Okay.
All those things. And he'll just be like, all right, so here were the stars on the night when that fell. And so we can read the ley lines based on those, on where those were. They should have been in these locations, but as we can see here...
Now the chief checks
out
of this
like
quickly.
15 feet like of the scroll and is pointing down further.
Yeah. The chief checks out of this fairly quickly, but the shaman, he introduces himself as Segada, so Seghada, the dad, the father, the shaman, Seghada. He is all over this. He is 100%. As soon as you said the lay of the stars on this night, he is, but comes around the the low table where you have this laid out and they're spreading the things out and nodding and he's right there along with you. So go to wherever you were going with that. I just want to make sure that you know that he's like,
oh yeah, no,
you got him instantly with this.
Yeah, and I feel like this is one of those things where we have like that little fade cut from like Rowan talking about this to Rowan talking about something else, and now everybody else is like has drinks and like all like time has passed here.
I love it.
And so Rowan eventually is just like pulling up the last piece of the scroll, and he is just like, and so we can see from all of this The only person who has the Sword of Power in order to enact these sort of changes is Grand Magister Tenebas. Tenbrios.
Tenebrios.
Tenebrios.
Yeah. Grandmaster Tenebrios.
Grand Magister Tenebrios.
And they're nodding and they're like, okay, should I know who that? And the husband's frill goes up, like his feathers puff up. After you see him kind of do the math, like he's converting in his head kind of thing. And he says something to her, and she looks at him and like leans in like, what did you, like, what? And turns to you and says, the Corruptor? The Corruptor.
I suppose. We have different names for them.
The Ohyr destroyed them. It was the Ohyr destroyed them. It was the one useful. She stops herself, realizing who's in the room. It was one of the greater things that they accomplished with their empire.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Are you saying the Corruptor is still here, is still in the world?
Yes.
And we'll get to we'll double back to what she's about to say, but I want to also kind of fill in while Rowan is doing all of this. I just want to go around quickly around let's say the table. One of the things while Rowan's going, and there's other maybe smaller little murmured conversations here and there in that, Sakura, said, is kind of finds herself near Viren's while this is going on and kind of leans in quietly so as not to disrupt the larger conversation and says, there was word when my brother was sent to the island, scouts had been sent out, and we had word that there was a Tuscan, what would they be, company in the area near the islands. Did you know of them? They were very near the island when it fell.
They were under it when it fell.
She's processing that. I am very sorry. It's easy to forget that we were not the only ones who suffered a loss. If they were close to you, you have my condolences. That's not the right word. I'll stick with that for now. But she said, that's the gist of what she, if they were close to you, I cry your loss. That's what she'll say.
They walked a path that I must now follow. That is my duty.
So that happened during. What I'm curious about is if anybody else has anything else that was going on during that, and because I can't. Wynn said a few things. Carabas really hasn't had a lot going on during the session. So what's going on like as this is all happening with Carabas?
Oh God, Carabas is having to hear this whole horoscope thing for probably the 5th time, which was about 6 times too many.
And you have to act. Is this one of the things where Rowan is convinced that you have a knack for this, so you have to act like you're interested and knowledgeable about it every time? Or is it like can you be bored about this in good conscience without damaging his impression of you?
He only has to do it when Rowan's looking.
Yeah. In the meantime, he'll be looking for anything else that might be of the least bit interest.
Well, they're bringing
that's hopefully not smaller younglings with feathers that are darting about in an interesting fashion.
They do bring food. You're much less interested in the seed cakes and grain grain based things as you are with the meat, which is quite good, really. As is the fermented various fermented drinks that they have. To what degree Carabas does or doesn't imbibe or indulge, I leave that as an exercise for the player. But they're out there.
If there's any overindulgence, it's merely because there's not a lot to do at the moment.
Right.
Which doesn't necessarily mean that it's not that it's a good idea, but
Yeah.
it's very much the oh yes. He nods his head, interestedly if Rowan looks to see, make sure still has an audience, and then goes back to, batting the fringe of a tassel, under his chair because nothing to do.
Batting idly. Anne, Win, anything there? The demeanor towards you, Win, is quite guarded. Certainly they have. It's an interesting thing because they have culturally some learned disdain, but there's no way they have anything other than race memory really for any personal feelings they have about you are the feelings that they've learned from campfire stories. They were a short-lived people, even by they're typically lived people, but by the O'Hare standards, they were a short-lived people. So while they were an annoyance, they were never like a big deal. How do you approach that? Like, what's your impression there of that? Their attitude. How do you look up at these guys? They're short-lived, but they live longer than us. I don't.
Well, sorry, can you repeat what you said?
I'm just kind of wondering how you're like internally. Maybe this is just your own, like in your own head kind of thing. Like, what's your let's turn it into like a more direct question. What do you learn about them in this short time that you're actually with them that you had no idea of from what stories you've been told about them back when the O'Hare were still a people and these guys were out on the fringes of your empire?
Oh, well, there was
what surprising thing, I guess, or whatever.
I mean, we had the disdain for them since they were because they were shorter lived and obviously could not match up with our magnificence, but certain sects of the O'Hare saw them as because of that more primitive, despite the fact that we were regularly having to face them because different culture, and they even just with their architecture, it's incredibly different from the
O'Hare approach, certainly.
Yeah, the big stone monuments and everything. So there is the look, they can't do this. They have short lives, but
They're still here, and you're not.
no
No.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I had been to the borders enough, and since it was other people, other guardians like me who were kind of in charge of protecting the border
Yeah, dealing with
and
things
dealing
like
with
this.
them. I was less inclined to go along with the oh ha ha ha, they're just flying, just they can't even fly properly.
Right. Except, yeah, how do you critique that when you can't at all? Did you ever notice that they were at the time? Did you ever notice that they weren't the battles, the fights, the clashes? Let's call them clashes between their people and the borders. Did you ever notice that they were defensive? That it basically boiled down to we're fighting because we have to right now because of where we need to go, or where we need to be, or they weren't raiding just for the sake of raiding. They weren't attacking just for the sake of attacking. They were doing it because they were put into a position where they had to. Did you ever notice it back then? Or is this something that you're sort of realizing in context now based on what they're saying? Because they talk about the island and having to go where the island is and having to follow that path. And, and you're kind of doing the math in your head now going, well, yeah, if they had to stick with that, it would have led them right through their lands. They weren't invading. They were following where they needed to be for. Was that something that you had noticed but not really fully understood back then? Or now are you only now seeing like, that's part of what caused our conflicts, and we never saw it because of our thing. Is this further explaining what you had seen before, or is this all new understanding for you?
I mean, I had noticed some that it was a different form of warfare, but never really knew why, because I was just there to protect the border, and anyone who may have been in the position to find out more was uninterested in finding it out.
Yeah, you were there because of the conflict, and then when the conflict was gone, then you were, yeah. It was warfare at need, not for the sake of the warfare, which is probably the big distinction there, I guess. Cool. And how are you occupied during all of this? While Rowan goes on. You're muted. And again, I apologize for the technological difficulty there that had me mute you.
No, I think that, as always, being introduced to something new, and a lot of what is and probably picking up on some things that the others aren't, because they're focused on point of view and what they're doing, their task.
You're getting more cultural stuff?
I'm actually looking more at the family, some
cool.
cultural stuff, but since it's mostly the royal family that's
they're the royal family, certainly, but they're also a family, and definitely not standing on with each other. They certainly don't stand on their position. You don't stand on that type of thing. They rather quickly abandon that sort of thing, even though they're here with strangers. Their own personal interactions are very authentic. So yeah, I think you get a pretty good read of that. It could be a lot of reasons for that. Cool. So we have you kind of tucking away, like sort of how the family dynamic works, that social thing, how they interact with those who are attending on them.
Yeah.
They're
How I can connect with them.
yeah. They're the royalty, but they're also in a traveling and as everyone's close neighbors when you're a traveling group like this. You might be the head of the troop, but you're still all traveling in wagons together, kind of thing. Bill said first among equals in a completely different context, but there's a little bit of that. I think applies to some of that.
So of course I have this weird Oregon Trail thing going through my head. Me dysentery, a Sue dysentery.
Oh my God. Oh God, there's a covered wagon story I'm not going to tell right now, but anyway, carry on. Cool. So, Rowan, back to what had been going on there. The little things that were going around in the background. Who you think is responsible for this? The chieftain, the chief sort of says something quickly to her daughter. A really quick query, and then she turns to Varens and says, "You said you knew their faces. You've seen the corruptor?"
All Varens can do at this point is physically describe the two people that he saw, but gesture to Wynn and Rowan as the people who have more authority to speak on who they really are.
You saw their servants. You faced their servants. A harbinger like you and a general of the O'Hare, and she sort of poses the question to Wynn. A general of the O'Hare? A leader?
She no longer has the right to call herself O'Hare.
They have devastated a generation of our people. We are the first among the tribes, and they look to us for our leadership. The island held... Ooh, I'm going to expand this a little bit. But that the island's fall changes everything about our relationships with the other people of the air. We will have to meet. We'll have to determine whether we are still first amongst the tribes. It changes everything. This was an attack. We have stories of the corruptor. We have stories of, what'd you call them? The Great Magister? The Grand Magister?
Grand Magister.
The Great Magister. We have stories of these, of the ancients before the O'Hare and their hatred of us. This was no accident. Now, whether or not she's right, she believes it. And her words put this, Rowan, in a context that you hadn't previously considered. Would it be fair to say that you have been somewhat approaching this almost as an academic, but at least partially as an academic exercise? Like, she's doing a bad thing. She's doing I mean, all signs point to this is the Overlord. This is, Ursula Tenebrios. This is a very bad person indeed. But at the same time, there's this almost like I'm doing your sheet, your conspiracy map. You're trying to do the math and figure out like what's the purpose? How much energy could be drawn from pulling that island out of the sky? How much might have been yielded by whatever there was that they did to the city? What with that much power, assuming a 30% loss, how much have you have, and what could you accomplish with that much, assuming you could channel it at all? Blah blah blah. Is it fair to say? And please tell me if not. That's been somewhat how Rowan has approached this as no. So
No.
how have you been? Is this more of a checking boxes on a prophecy, or what? How have you been working this problem? What's been your approach? Because what I'm looking for is she's providing a missing piece if she's right. That it isn't just about drawing the power. It's also an attack. Like something that she wants out of the world is being taken out of the world by this action, in addition to, oh yes, I'd like all this power, please.
Yeah. So Rowan's kind of been looking at this like I have it on a sheet that the harbingers, the magisters, are servants of the Dark Lord, and this is kind of how he's kind of like looking at it, is like him coming to the realization after being away from those guys for a really long time. It's just like, you know what? Maybe we were the bad guys. And all this is doing is just sort of confirming, is like, oh no, the secrets they kept, the High Council kept from everybody else. It's just like, no, the Magisters wanted power. They, so that's why they're following Tenebrios, and kind of the part Rowan is seeing out of this now is that they are following some diabolic, evil, ancient being who is unknowable and all these things. Is like, now he's like hearing this, and he's like, I might be giving them too much credit. They sound petty.
Yeah. And when you say they, are you referring to your like the council or
Tenebrios
specifically?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, because he was kind of like seeing them as, or her as the like, again, kind of how like some people might see the Ohyr as just sort of these.
She has some ineffable plan for all of this power that she's amassing.
No,
Or
she's just petty.
She has a petty checklist and also wants the power probably, but it could be they just, there's 100 places she could acquire this power, but she wanted the pretty floating island to crash. Maybe this is just another conspiracy theory on your part. Maybe it's just another theory that's not going to have any weight. But it feels like it's just a niggling thought in the back of your mind, but at the same time, it's like it's both wonderfully clarifying and really kind of terrifying that may be true. Like, what if Sauron just had a couple of grudges that he really, really wanted to see checked off? So yes, there's potential here, and this puts this. It's like those illusion pictures with those pictures where it's like, is it the two faces of a vase? Is it a duck or a rabbit? The magic eye picture. You've been looking at this from a certain point of view. This additional layer laid on top of this onion skin over top of it, of some of it is just petty vengeance. for something that happened so long ago, not even the Ohyr have records of it, provides an additional piece of information of, first this island fell and it destroyed these things. And then the city that was the Ohyr, that was where they worked with the dwarves and created these great artifacts, then it fell and is no longer can be safely. I mean, if what was done is what you understand to have been done, can no longer safely be inhabited without something happening, something changing there, something being done that will probably never be done there. That extra layer of, it's not just about the power, it's not just about the experiment, it's not just the, as Eki put it, proof of concept or whatever was it, whatever phrase it was he used, it essentially meant the same thing. It's also hid behind a probably very pleasant demeanor, a hit list, gives you, plus all your extra ley line data and stuff like that, where they're going next.
Ooh. Do tell.
And this is all kind. I may not do tell, but you're kind of having this revelation. We will take, as the chief is saying, we will take in these refugees, these people that you put under your protection, but we would charge you, Harbinger, be the agent of our revenge, be our thrown spear. She gestures somewhat to Virens in this case. If you faced those and you intend to continue to face those who act for the corruptor, strike with our names on, strike while speaking our names. Where does the corruptor go next? Where would you go? You know, where does the corruptor go, and what will you do? As you're kind of putting these things together and making these things. Now maybe we probably all need to get an idea of this, but it's probably, I must consult my notes kind of a thing, or maybe it's one of those things. But what I'm thinking is that you're putting the city and the floating island together and coming up with one of the flying, one of the great, maybe the great flying city, like one of the central, well, the backdrop, right? On the Roll20,
Mm-hmm.
Where is this? Is this an Orcish thing? Is this a Tuscan thing? Is it now a Tuscan thing? I'm pinging the.
I don't know where that came from. So.
Well, I grabbed it. I mean, it's just a picture, but I'm wondering if it isn't.
I would say no, because it looks nice.
So is it another kind of Ohyr thing that has been re-inhabited after the fall of the Ohyr kind of thing? Something like that?
It's grand enough to be Ohyr, but...
I love the idea, and I'm just now putting it in the context of the stuff that we've established about the island, about these islands and stuff, that they drift with the ley lines, and this fucking thing has been chained down because we want it to be in a specific place, because they have that kind of arrogance. It drifts, but it's a city, by God, and we're going to use this city, therefore we will anchor it with these chains that are literally thousands of years old now. and this aspect of the world shall not move because we say it so. Kind of a thing. And we need... And the thing that makes you think it's this place is because of the rumor or the history of it, the mythology of the place is that some writings about it claim that it predates even the Ohir, that in the same way that it is inhabited now by those who barely understand its workings, that it was likewise the first city of the Ohir where they learned how to do what they did in other places, but that it was not theirs to begin with. That it predates that place, or that the place predates even the Ohir. And can't remember the language that we used for the Ohir.
I just actually came up with something.
Yeah, hit me, please. Yay.
Higflama.
Can you type it? Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Hegflama. Love it.
You were saying that, and I'm already like, ooh, I should come up with.
Yes, you should.
This is what
Yes, absolutely should.
Should
If we were gonna translate that into something in the same way that we took the word and said, oh, this basically translates at Red Valley. What is this? Layman's translation.
1 second. 1 second. 1 second. Oh, I have this all in a weird order.
Gotta love those double AEs. The AE thing.
I do. That's why I chose this language. Hero's Flame.
Hero's Flame?
No, 1 second. One of the...
Oh, Hire's Flame.
Gods. Or Hires. Okay.
Hire's Flame. We'll stick with Hegflama for now. I want to think of a sort of what it's referred to as now kind of thing. It may not. Go ahead.
I was gonna say if they've completely forgotten the Ohir legacy, or if the people who inhabit it now just never knew it. Perhaps it's like some, because of how big it is, perhaps it's like some trade, confluence of trade or something like that.
Sure.
So perhaps like Crossroad or...
Oh, yeah, I like that. I like something like that in that everything. Okay.
Crossroad, Gateway.
Gotcha.
Chains Cross.
Oh, Chains Cross. I like that. Can we go with that? Does that sound good to go, folks?
Sure.
Chains Cross?
Yeah.
Hegflama is what actually, Rowan, is it okay if you look at Win and say it his name for say the Ohir name for it?
Yeah, just like Hegflama. Everybody else looks at him weird.
Chains Cross.
Chains Cross.
Win.
She wants to drop, except for Win. She's going to drop Chains Cross. She's going to destroy Chains Cross. And that's where we stop? I think that's where we stop. Bill, I saw what you said here, and we're definitely going to spend a little bit of time. Do we want to do downtime next time? There's a downtime mechanic thing.
I think we should.
That's
kind of part of the rhythm.
I was actually thinking this might just be something that I write up.
Okay, that's fine too.
I'll summarize briefly. Virens wants to go on a hunt with members of this group. and basically rouse the spirit of the animal that they bring down to send a message back to the rest of the orcs.
Very cool. Yeah, by all means, write that up. That's really, really awesome. I love that.
So,
Rowan,
Doris,
yes, sir.
can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Are we gonna earn these people's fellowship?
Let me ask you a counter question because you would have just looked at this and I haven't looked at it tonight. Have we done enough for them to have done that, or is it after, like, you save Hegflama, like Striker?
Well, I guess the question is, these people, does that mean the bird people, or does that mean the Red Valley folks we just rescued from death?
Certainly the Red Valley folks. Yes, certainly the Red Valley folks. You found a place for them, a home for them, and we can.
Do we need an end of segment wrap up thing, because I think we've reached the end of the Red Valley saga.
Yes. Where's that at? Where is that at? Where is that at?
Now it's in the shortcut rules.
So,
go ahead.
Going to the fellowship thing. What the book has to say on this is, as the games go on, the heroes will earn the respect and aid of the people they've helped and saved in their journeys.
Yes.
When this happens, you must grant them fellowship, a powerful move that represents the bond they have with that community.
Yes.
Which, yeah, it sounds like if we save Hegflama, maybe? Or maybe we gain fellowship with Hegflama?
Yeah, Hegflame is big enough, and I think it may end up being sort of that cosmopolitan, run by a, council of burgers kind of thing that.
Yes.
Burger
McDonald, Burger King.
Not, what? Come on.
No, I'm just thinking of fun names for them. King ends with an E.
I'm so sad right now. No. But I think they may be more. It depends on what happens. In my mind, maybe that's disparate enough, and your guys are still we still have this problem with most people aren't gonna believe that the corruptors are a thing. That they may not realize that they were saved. You might have just been disrupting things, kind of a deal. But that then bounces back to the people of the air, having acted as their vengeance. That's the thing that gets you fellowship with them, and you've got the Red Valley folk, and then you've got the sort of collective people there, larger than just this tribe, because there's more than just this tribe. I can't really see them being royalty as such for just this tribe without it being like they're the first among many. You know what I mean? But I mean, I can easily be dissuaded from that, or circumstances end up dictating that that's not how it shakes out. In the short term, for today, I would say that you definitely have fellowship with the refugees from Red Valley. If that's cool, is that cool?
Well, that's up to you.
I think
because if we earn fellowship, you have to do a thing.
Yeah, I've got to find the thing that I need to do. That's my.
So.
Is that a Overlord move or a move move?
It's a move, but it says the Overlord has to do some stuff, and that is going to be on
special moves. Is it on
page 125?
Oh, I'm nowhere near where I needed to be. Granting fellowship. Wow, they really hid that one under a heading that says granting fellowship.
Yeah, well, the granting fellowship is 6-ish pages.
Yeah.
8-ish.
I'm not going to do that right now because it's late.
Think about that over the week.
I mean, I'm a niche. Oh, I see. Because you got to pick a move that you guys. Yeah. Sorry, I should have thought about this ahead of time.
Actually, you pick 3, and then we pick one of those 3.
Right. Cool. Yeah, let me think about this because I can see something where it may be sort of a weird amalgam of sort of the people of the air, and I might pick 2 from that would closely represent the Red Valley folks, and maybe 1 for the people of the air, just because they're taking them in and that kind of thing. Yeah, so let me throw that. Let me think about that. Yes, I'm definitely down with that having happened. But I need a little bit of time with it. Bill's going to write up a thing. We're going to set out for Hegflama, Chains Crossing. I love Chains Crossing. That's so cool. Set out for, get to, who knows? Might just jump to it. Yeah. There's times when I wish I had a map of this whole world. Okay. So, stuff happening there. And I want to nail down, I need to go back and kind of review like which bonds, because with Anne's character, her bonds are useful. So those bonds can be like hit when they're not around Anne to like go, well, I had a bond with so and so, and as a result, I have, she gave me this to take with me as a blah blah blah, and I'm going to use that here to be this useful thing that gives me an extra little bit of help on this activity or whatever. Things of that nature. Okay. Cool. I just want to. There's a little bit of housekeeping there with regards to like sort of tying that off and handing up to the thing. Dave, was that what you were talking about with sort of the end of segment thing, or is there something else you were talking about?
Just all of the standard stuff.
Standard end. Yeah. The three questions and all that.
The three questions.
We had been talking. Now, this doesn't really apply here, but let me. Where's that at? That is under the. Is it under basic moves? Yeah, end of session right there. Okay. When you reach end of session, the fellowship answers these questions. Did we save or protect a community in need? Yes. Did we strike a blow against the Overlord and their minions? I'm going to say no. Please, I'm saying no. You guys can say whatever you want to say, and we'll figure it out.
No. Really.
Did we
but
learn?
We plan to.
Did we learn about the world and its people? Hell to the yes. All kinds of cool stuff tonight. So much cool stuff. So we have 2 yeses there. For each yes answer, the group chooses one. You may choose an option more than once. Each fellowship player refreshes 1 piece of their gear to its full value. Each fellowship player chooses 1 stat to heal. I don't think we have any stats to heal. The fellowship and the overlord each choose 1 player to level up. You cannot be chosen to level up if you are the highest level player if you've already been chosen. I think everyone's the same level again, right?
As far as I know, we're all level 2, yeah.
Yeah. And is it fair to say that the only logical action we actually have to take right now is leveling up?
I think so.
I still have gear that's down, but I mean, if people think that leveling up is better, I'm okay with that.
I mean, we're starting off from a new thing, so it might be good to have everybody refreshed.
Like if we're doing downtime, if we're spending like the week here, then that gear is going to get refreshed anyway. So
there you go. Which is fine also.
So do we feel okay with 2 level ups?
I think so, because that'll cover.
That's everybody but
most
1,
of
right?
the team.
Yeah. So that's that's the overlord and then 3 players. So
okay, I see.
The overlord gets 2 choices, only one of which could be the overlord.
Right.
Or at most one of which would be the overlord, and then the players get 2 choices.
Before we get off the phone, please loop me back to "Aw man." But yes, Overlord picks Overlord first pass. Who? I guess you guys have to decide on who's gonna.
Anybody got anything cool they want?
I feel like Wynn and Anne got the best time out of everybody here in terms of just rallying people and having their kind of story played out. I don't know that Anne had a lot of story play out, but like I feel that her her role was more in the spotlight than I think anybody else's in the last.
With regards to like the Red Valley stuff and the people and everything like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
would
and I
totally
want to see her develop more and see where she takes that character to. So that's my
Sure.
No,
suggestions.
no pressure. No pressure.
It's all you, Ann. You're now the highest level
I
person.
do feel like the Red Valley refugees are sort of.
And so that would leave one other person. So who do we feel that
That
is a
is
good
a compliment.
choice?
Well,
I feel
that's
like
for the
Rowan would be
Overlord.
a good third choice.
Well, the Overlord gets to vote for one as well.
You get to vote for
Yeah,
one.
I'm just
second
saying
round.
like that. My personal feeling is that. But yeah, Overlord, who's the person that you feel should level up?
I'm gonna say Win. Because we're bouncing from Red Valley to another ancient O'Hare thing. And yeah. There's a lot of Wynn's history sort of initially being uncovered here. My hope is that following Chains Crossing, we spend some we like the next thing that we have to worry about, and I need to be cognizant of the fact that there's actually two goals that the Overlord is aiming at right now. I need to think about what the other one is that has thus far not really pinged the radar. But I feel like I want to get to like Toscan lands and that sort of thing as well. But for right now, we're kind of in some O'Hare history stuff. So yeah, I'm leaning towards Win for that second one, my second pick. That leaves you guys to pick a second one. Or did we say Rowan? Or did you guys say Rowan? I didn't hear who the other person was.
I don't know that anybody else suggested, but I feel that of all the PCs, that Win and Rowan probably deserve the level up most of all.
I can agree with that.
Cool. So it sounds like Win, Rowan, Anne,
And the Overlord.
and the first among evils. Oh, sorry, equals. Evils? Equals. Same thing.
Either or.
First among evils. Cool. I'll figure out something there. We had when we were talking on Sunday, I've run around this before, and I don't know that it's necessarily a solve or anything like that, but this isn't the first time I've run into where the pacing of a game that is meant to run for 4.5 hours, four some odd hours at a table, the advancement pace of like, well, we're going to do this level assessment thing at the end of every session feels weird when the sessions are half the length. And it doesn't.
Well, I think it made sense last time that we I don't think we did this last time because we were kind of in the middle of the journey and so things were really resolved.
So I talked about this earlier, and I'm going to reiterate that I think that is a self-solving problem, and we do not need to meddle with it.
Okay.
And here's why. Last time, let's say that we just were talking about journey stuff. That's the whole session. That's all we did. Then we would ask the questions. Did we save a predicted community need? No. Did we strike a blow? No. Did we learn more? No. But we still did the move. It just didn't yield advancement out of proportion to what we actually did.
You're right. I would agree with that. You're right. We just have to be, cognizant of the fact that the answers can all be no. Because sometimes that is just what happens. You're right.
There's motivation for us to make the answers yes, and that should drive us to pace the game accordingly.
A little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
Gotcha. No, that's good. For whatever, either I was listening more poorly or you just said it differently than you did on Sunday, but that totally makes sense to me. You're right. The questions themselves pace it if the answers are no. So there you go. Asked and answered, counselor. Good stuff. All right. Cool. With that, thank you guys. I'm just going to hit pause here and I got to get back to the oh man thing here.
All right. By the way, this was a really strong session, and thank you for that. I feel like we're making good progress.
Yeah, it's a learning curve. But God, great stuff. Thanks so much.